Okay. Okay, good evening and welcome to the September 12th, 2018 meeting of the Norfolk Conservation Commission. This meeting is being audio and videotaped. It is now 7:08. And first our agenda is with the appointment with the MBTA regarding the double track line. A notice of intent was issued on May 16th, 2018 for construction of a double track in Norfolk. On September 6th, the Commission received a letter from the MBTA proposing changes to the plan deemed administrative. The applicant was advised to appear before the Commission to review those changes. After hearing from the applicant, the Commission will vote as to whether to deem these changes minor under the existing order of conditions. So, who do we have here tonight?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. David Perry from the MBTA. I was here back in the original notice of intent filing, and I'm here before you to present and discuss with you the administrative changes we'd like to make. And primarily they were prompted by concerns that we heard from the public and from the Commission, and improvements that we think we can make to how the runoff is going to come off of the railroad right-of-way in the area of the Stop River. So we've got some handouts, and I'll go ahead and you've got the full size, but we can give these out to any of the people in attendance. And I'll start on this sheet that's got the red and green over to the right-hand side. It's sheet TK 110. This is a little bit confusing because the way that the railroad works, north is down. So the plans are kind of upside down when you're thinking of them in terms of real life. So you got to flip your frame of reference around. But what we're looking at here, right here, is this Campbell Street undergrade bridge. Goes under the railroad tracks. That's otherwise known as Highland Lake Drive. So right here is right at the bottom, right where this word drainage flow is in red. That's the intersection of Campbell Street and Highland Lake Drive. Okay. So that's a reference for you. The red indicates what we originally had submitted as a plan, and the green is the way that we're making a change. As you can see, the red originally had a drainage pipe going parallel to the tracks and terminating in an outfall structure just on the other side of the Highland Lake Drive, and the flow would be to the east on the north side of the tracks, down that embankment, and really kind of sheet flowing into a little bit of a swale there, and then onto Campbell Street, really. So when we went out there, we heard concern. We talked to the gentleman who lives right here. He has a historic house right here that's facing Highland Lake Drive. We looked at it. We were also concerned about how that runoff would work here. Also, when we took a harder look at the bridge does not have the available space to put that drainage pipe across the bridge. So the plan was kind of, it really wouldn't work when we got into the detailed design. So what we're proposing to do here is and the slope is very shallow here, so that the railroad's not on a big hill. It's a very shallow slope. The red was following the slope of the railroad, which is going down at that point. But what we realized is that because the slope is so shallow, we can actually redirect the drainage direction here and have the pipe slope uphill, so to speak, because it's so shallow. We can just dig it in and make it flow back to the other direction. And so what we're proposing is to flow it away from that bridge back to the west, and that links up to this drawing that's got more red and green on it, TK 111. And you can see right here the new plan is to have this pipe come from the left side of the sheet and then terminate in a new outfall structure just above the Stop River. And so this outfall would direct the flow from that pipe that's coming back from the undergrade bridge at Highland Lake Drive and terminating on our property, and then the flow would be down an embankment and eventually into the Stop River, which is, in this area, it's in a granite channel.
Where it goes under the
left
road?
over, yeah, where it goes under the road. The granite channel is, you know, a channel built with granite blocks that's a remnants of a mill or some kind of channel that was associated with some kind of facility there. But there's nothing to prevent the water from flowing into the Stop River right there and not going out onto Campbell Street. There's already runoff that comes down from this slope, this little hill right here, and flows down into the Stop River. We were out there on a wet day. We took a look at it. And so this is a very minor change, because if the water had flowed out here and flowed across Campbell Street, it probably would have crossed Campbell Street, and then the Stop River actually comes and loops around, and there's kind of a wetland over on this side, on the north side of Campbell Street. And so the water, we're not changing where the water is eventually going. It's going to get into the Stop River, whether it was coming here and going across the street, or now coming here and going directly into the Stop River in that granite channel. The other change that we made was we shortened this retaining wall that's going to be installed above the Stop River culvert, which goes across which goes from Highland Lake across north to allow the Stop River to flow to the north. And by shortening this retaining wall, we could eliminate the drainage pipe that was behind it, and eliminate the need for a drainage pipe there. So that's the extent of the changes in the area of Highland Lake, the Stop River culvert, and Highland Lake Drive. So before I get to the next sheet, I'll take questions or concerns or comments.
I understand. I remember the gentleman with the house on Campbell Street was concerned, and I can understand the water. And I'm sure the DPW wouldn't want the water on the street either, so that does seem better. So, I don't know. Anybody else have any input?
Yes, what are you using for materials? Is it going to be riprap, heavier rock to stop any type of, if we have a 100-year storm?
For the outfall structure?
Yes,
Yeah, there's a
For the
detail for the
tube
outfall structure. I'll let
before
John.
it gets to the storm river.
Yeah, I'll let John speak to the structure of the this is. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is John Orison, and I'm the project manager for HNTV Engineering, and I've been involved in railway design for over 43 years. The drawings, and I can maybe just point to the drawing really closely. This is what is called the outflow structure, or the FES, and it's a trapezoid design, so that the pipe is a 12-inch pipe that runs into the start of it, and it's a trapezoid design that is 6 feet wide and 12 feet long, and it has various types of rock in it, so that it's trying to abate the energy of the flow and slow it down, so that when it goes off of the splash pad, that it's going to be moving in terms of a very slow speed down the hill, because we don't want to get any scour under it or something like that.
Okay. Okay, anybody else? All right.
I'm going to take a minute and switch drawings. We can just put it on. The next drawing that I'll call your attention to is TK116 down in the bottom right-hand corner. It's got some red markups on it right there. This is the area of Rockwood Road, so the town hall is right over here. Again, north is down, so it's a little bit confusing. So we're we're east of Rockwood Road, and the train station is right over here, Norfolk Station, so we're right over here. This is the area of a cattle pass that goes underneath the railroad right-of-way. The cattle pass is at the end of that dead-end street that's right near the train station parking lots that are down behind Dunkin' Donuts. So for reference of where we're talking about. We had originally planned to do a retaining wall above that cattle pass and put in a drainage pipe with an outfall structure. We've taken another look at that, and we've determined that we don't need that retaining wall. So we're eliminating that retaining wall and eliminating the drainage pipe and the outfall. So that's pretty simple elimination of some structure and elimination of some cost for us. We're going to be able to support that bank with riprap to support the construction that we need to do at that area.
You okay with that?
I'm sure they would be thorough in checking this, so we'll have to, you know, if they're saying that this will work, it better work.
Yeah, how did you make that determination that you didn't need that anymore, I guess?
Well, a lot has to do with the current standards of slopes versus what's out there. So our current construction standards are a lot more stringent in terms of the steepness of a slope versus what's out there right now. So if we were to come along and build this right-of-way, we would not build it with the steep slopes that are there right now. So when we look at it, you know, we can say, well, we're not going to redo 3 miles of right-of-way and fill in all of this, you know, to get a slope that would meet our standards
And it's
when
already
what we
higher than
have
your
there.
standards.
What's that?
When it's already higher than your standards that you have.
No, it's steeper.
Right.
We'd want a shallower slope. So to get a shallower slope, we'd have to fill in, you know, and fill in and build up the bank so that it was shallower. So when we were looking in this cattle pass area, that's kind of what drove us to do a retaining wall, is because of the steep slope in that area. We said, this is too steep, we need a retaining wall. When we took another look at it, we say, well, you know what, it's not a lot different than what's on the rest of the existing right-of-way, and it would be kind of, you know, it's just not needed in terms of matching what's out there and being stable. And we also determined that we can, you know, we don't have to remove this cattle pass. We are going to fill it in and cover it over on this side. But that's a very typical thing that we do when we do railroad construction. These cattle passes are all over the Commonwealth, and we typically do fill them in, protect them, and cover them, and cover, in this case, just this end would be covered over.
Is that part of the reason you don't need the wall?
Yes.
Because you're covering it over? You're
Yes.
filling it?
Yes.
Is that still within your right-of-way, that cattle pass?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, all the construction that we would be doing here would be within our right-of-way. We're not going to extend the toe of the slope out past our property line.
Okay. So the proposed drain was because of the retaining wall before,
Correct.
because you had to get the water out from behind it?
Right.
Okay.
Now we don't need the retaining wall, we don't need to, you know, we don't need to control the, you know, it's gonna be sheet flow drainage off just like anywhere else along that area where you've got a built up right away. Water will flow down that slope, just like it's doing right now.
Okay. All right, any questions?
I have just one now. I remember specifically, I think that gentleman was at the hearing.
Yes.
Were there anybody else that had any similar complaints that you've remedied, or?
We took I spent quite a bit of time out in the hallway talking to quite a bit of people. I got some information before this meeting. I emailed all those people, told them that we were going to be having this hearing, told them, actually, the gentleman who lives here was not able, lives at the, you know, right across from Highland Lake Drive. He wasn't able to come to the meeting. I corresponded with them, sent him the plans. There were some other people who had concerns, not specifically about this kind of issue, just concerns in general. However, we took a look at all of these outfall structure locations in Norfolk and in Walpole. We circled back and actually a couple months ago or a month ago, John and I came out and walked a number of these locations to identify if any of these outfall structures were, dumping right into somebody's backyard. The limitation that we have here is the way that we did our survey from the right-of-way. So as you can see, there's nothing on these plans that indicate where the houses are or
Correct,
what's
yeah.
beyond the limits of our right-of-way. There could be you just don't know unless, so we tried to correlate these, correlate the locations of the outfalls on Google Maps and Google Earth. And John did a good job of drawing up some plans and plotting them. We came out here and looked at it. There's nothing else in Norfolk where we have an outfall structure that's really near an abutter. That we don't think that there's really anywhere else where we're going to be creating a potential problem. The one that was the worst was that one that we looked at Highland Lake Drive. There was a lot. I mean, even if there hadn't been a house across the street, it just didn't make a lot of sense. And you would have been calling me up in a couple of years telling me to fix it. So I want to do it right once, not come back and have to do it again.
Okay. All right, anything else you want to add, or?
No, that's all I had.
Okay. All right. Okay. So what we have here tonight is the applicant is devising a plan, and we can vote on it as an administrative minor change to the plan. If we don't agree with that, then they have to amend their order of conditions, which means they have to refile back in. So,
Is there a possibility we could see something with an overlay of the properties that are surrounding you right away?
That would be very difficult in terms of the way that we've done the survey. We'd have to go out there and try to survey in that additional information. We could share with you the plan that HNTB came up with that we looked at. It's not entirely perfectly accurate. It's pretty rough in terms of where the outfalls are near properties, so it's not to the level of detail of engineering plans. It's kind of, obviously at the Highland Lake Drive, we can see exactly what's going on there. But where we have outfall structures where it's difficult to correlate the track plan to Google Earth, we're within a few feet, maybe 25 feet of where these outfall structures are, but I don't want to misrepresent what we've done, in terms of that. But we could share that if
Yeah, it would just be helpful for us to get a perspective of where the outfalls are and where the private property is.
Sure. Yeah.
Be glad to do it.
okay. All right. Well, I think these changes are consistent with the minor, and that's how we can make this an administrative change. So with that, I need a motion that these changes are minor in nature and do not require an amended order of conditions.
I move to allow that, I guess.
You need to,
I move to allow for the amended changes as minor and such, and just to allow for the changes to happen.
okay, second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
4-0.
all right, so that motion is granted.
Thank you.
Can I just ask one
Can you
question?
email those plans to me?
Yes.
There's, she got it. Email.
There we go.
Super.
Thank you for taking the time to meet with the homeowner
Yes.
and changing the plans.
Yeah, no problem. It was the right thing to do. Thanks. Thanks for your time.
Okay, you're welcome.
Do you have a question?
Go ahead.
It
No
may
one.
not be related to this board.
Do you have a question about this?
May I ask a couple questions?
Yeah, I didn't write that.
All right. If you could just hang on in case.
Hello, Donna Jones. I'm a little disappointed to hear a piece of Norfolk's history of that cattle underpass is going away. Also wondered if neighbors had been told about the project, about when they could expect work to be done for adding the tracks. Has DPW been notified of the project?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, if you're
Yep.
okay, it's not related to the filing, but I'm willing to answer those questions. Yes, I've been in contact with the DPW on a number of different technical issues and to inform them and to coordinate with them about the project. The original schedule of the project had us going forward with construction starting about now. That's been delayed. We've got some work in Walpole that we need to get designed and dialed in. So we're probably looking at starting construction the beginning of the next construction season, which would be after the winter, probably February, March timeframe to start. The notifications that we've done to the town were primarily when we filed the notice of intent for the Conservation Commission. That's the primary notification that we've done. And that's kind of, when we get into construction, we will be making notification to the commuter rail riders on the line to inform them. But no, and of course, as a part of filing the notice of intent, we were required to notify all the abutters. So we did mailings to notify all the abutters, and I don't recall, it's 250 or 300 feet on either side. So it was quite a few abutters that had to be notified, and that was the primary way that we notified people about the project.
Okay. Okay, next we have, so we want to do new business. September 10th, we received a letter from Mrs. Lorraine Sweeney, who is an abutter to the property located at 144 Seekonk Street. The commission issued an order of resource area delineation on January 10th, 2018, and Mrs. Sweeney subsequently filed a request for departmental action, and a superseding ORAD was issued on July 13th. And she has stated the appeal period has expired and is here before the commission tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lorraine Sweeney, 14 Stop River Road. I'm here before you tonight. It really is not related to the ORAD. As you just said, Mr. Chairman, the DEP issued a superseding order, and I do think DEP got it right. They relocated several of the flags and expanded the wetland area, the one resource area that had been applied for. But they also took an additional step and identified something that was outside their jurisdiction, and that was approximately 12 feet off to the northwest. There was an isolated vegetated wetland that they opted to identify, though they didn't have to. It really leads me into the reason I'm here this evening. Back in August of 2017, over a year ago, the zoning enforcement officer, Mr. Bullock, had cited the owner of the property for unpermitted land clearing and excavation and general disturbance. And that ended up being heard, well, Mr. O'Hardo appealed the building inspector's decision, and that was heard by the zoning board. The zoning board rendered a decision regarding the, well, unpermitted construction of what was essentially just, the applicant described it as a construction roadway through the property. And they amended the original notice that the building inspector had filed, and really stopped short of ordering restoration of the wetland area that was affected by that unpermitted land disturbance. And the reason I'm here this evening was, a few months ago I wrote to this board because I assumed that the reason the Board of Appeals didn't order restoration was they assumed that the Conservation Commission, that was their jurisdiction, and that they would initiate enforcement action. But when I wrote the letter several months ago to the board asking what the board was going to do, the chairman at the time, Mr. Whittleton, said that he would prefer to wait and see what DEP decided as far as the ANRAD went. So now that DEP has issued a superseding order, it only further augments the reason to further investigate this, because similar to what the zoning board's consultant had suggested, that areas subject to protection under Norfolk's wetlands bylaw were impacted by the land disturbances, that it should be further investigated. In connection with the zoning board, I have filed an appeal with Superior Court, really asking them to take enforcement action on this, but it almost seems like a waste if this board intends to do the same. So I just wanted to find out. It's been over a year since that land disturbance occurred. This superseding order has been issued by DEP. No one filed an appeal. I checked today. So the single resource area they applied for has been affirmed by DEP, as well as an IVW directly to the northwest, which is the area that used to be part of a larger BVW in that area. And again, here just this evening to find out if this board intends to do any further investigation or not.
Okay. So we just received this letter on Monday from you, and I have talked to a few people in the building regarding your letter. And I think I need to speak again to some other people regarding it. I don't have enough information to make a informed decision right now. So I think we need to take your letter under advisement, and the people in the various boards I need to speak to in the office, and see how we should proceed. So I think that's just the best way to leave this right now.
So is it something then you will continue to your next meeting?
I don't know if I should do that or not.
Just as far as the response goes. For example, if you should decide after consulting with others in town that you don't want to look into this any further, can at least from mine and the other butters' standpoint, can we have closure on that, that you as a board don't intend to investigate this any further?
I can say that I will try to get you an answer by the next meeting.
Okay,
We can
that's
get you a
fair.
letter.
That's fair.
And I don't know that it needs to come before the board, whether we can just mail you a letter. I don't know.
A letter just answering the question whether
Yes.
you're going to take
Yeah,
any
see if we can
further
get you an
action.
answer to
Okay.
your questions with your letter.
Okay, that's reasonable. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, we have under new business the Highland Lake removal of water chestnut.
I think we're just
Just
pass
gonna-
on that. There was discussion with a resident, and then David Turry was kind of involved with CPC and Lions or whatever, but he's not here. I haven't heard any more, so we just go by that one for tonight.
Okay.
So I read the letter, and it appears it may be too late this season to start doing some of the work. And so that they said when they put in their estimate for costs, that they would estimate from 5 acres to 6 acres, 20% increase on the cost of actually removing the water chestnuts that are there.
Whose letter?
In the letter that we have here, when they were describing the company that gives the quotes for machinery and cost and all of that, that as the time goes, if we end up doing it next year, that it'd be best to, it's under about 5 acres now, so to put in a bid for the cost would be about 6 acres by the time next year. It grows about 20%, about, and they indicated how much it would cost for, I think it was $18.50 a day, and they could do a little over an acre a day. So, and it's a couple of thousand to have the machinery delivered.
Just a side point. I don't remember, I haven't dug through, whatever year that the town had the company go out and check different ponds, and when they had talked about Highland Lake then, they were checking the plants, how deep, whatever, but they were out there with canoes, how cloudy the water was and everything, but they had commented how they had seen a few water chestnut plants and had taken them into their boats when they were there. And in that amount of time, look at how much that's covered, so.
So what I've read about them, part of the plant, of the seed part is underwater. So if you don't completely remove the plant, they take it ashore, and there's a good chance that you've just created another 100 plants. So if you don't do it properly. The other part is also a chemical process.
Right.
So I don't know how that would fly, but I think that if we don't stop it soon, at 20% a year, it's already at 5 acres, it's really going to choke the whole water system.
Yeah.
So I think they indicated about putting it on maybe a vote for our town meeting, because it's going to have to be something that's going to have to be done every year for maintenance to keep the water chestnuts out of the lake.
Right. And other
They
plants.
last
that-
several years, the seeds.
Yeah.
So even if we removed everything today, there's a good chance that a lot of it's going to sprout up again next year. So it's something that would have to be mediated and budgeted every year.
It's like dandelions in your lawn, you know, they're never really all gone. So it's a maintenance, you know,
Right,
and
is it
it's a
something
cost.
though that they could be manually removed, like they're suggesting, and then
Yeah, there's a machine
maintain
that
it,
harvests them, but
maintain it chemically though, rather than,
but you have to do the chemical every year too.
well, but that's, would seem to me to be less expensive than manual.
Yeah, I think it's a few thousand chemicals versus about $1,800 a day and needed for about 4 days, plus a couple of grand to get it there, and then pay a landscape company to remove what they harvest.
And where are they going?
It appears as though the first year would be the major cost, because we're moving all that material over 5 acres. And then after that, I would think that they'd be much more sporadic and a lot easier to do one at a time. But I don't know, I didn't read anything about the chemicals that they actually do spray on the plants and what that does affect water quality. The other issue was that by spraying the plants, you still have the material in the water, which then you have the seed pod, which will have several years.
Right.
So,
But they'll say even your crystal clear ponds and lakes up in Maine, those are not natural, that they're all maintained, you know, so,
but once they get in, they're very, very difficult.
yeah.
You do these mitigation every single year to keep it down.
So it's a town-owned lake, the town's got to pay for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, their
Yeah.
town,
So there was, they were talking about what if the DPW bought a machine to do it every year, but technology changes, and that's just a lot of money up front for something that may be,
but again, you know, you're removing it, but now you have to do something with it, you know,
Yeah.
so. If they're serious about it, there's different options to look into, and again, you have the expense, you know, so.
So how does that go before the town? Who makes it? How do you get that on the ballot?
I'm sorry.
How do you get that on the town warrant?
Well,
Do we have to get it on there? I'm just asking.
I think it just depends, like, in my town, they had it where there was the town pond, and that came to conservation, but I think it was, it's years ago, but I think they had an amount in there for treating the lake, because it had to be treated all the time. It
I
was
think
chemical.
they kind of hinted at that we need to get a budget, line item budget for every year, that we do every year, because we could do it once, and then if we don't do it for 3 or 4 more years, we're back to where
Right.
we are today.
But, you know, it's up to the company. They get their permits from the state. They put up signs for people, you know, don't
I
touch
think-
the water for a few days, and
think-
calculate for, because it just went through for Mirror Lake, because Rentham.
Did their
was gonna-
side,
Right,
but they did chemical, right?
right.
Well, yeah, that was my point though, is the chemical to maintain after you do the initial physical removal.
I don't even know if they were doing removal, well, they had a whole, because they'll go in and the company goes in and evaluates, and what's the problem, and the best way to treat those,
I
you
mean,
know?
obviously Highland Lake is a major problem, and it would, I mean, I don't know enough about it to know the
If it's
difference.
surface, because you have plants that'll be underneath the water, you have the surface ones, they'll have chemicals that take care of the surface stuff or whatever, so, you know, the companies, you know, they're professional, they have to do their homework,
Yeah.
and just
Problem is
do
the seeds
different-
are underwater. The seed,
Yeah.
you know, the piece that holds, like a giant nut that holds these soft seeds, they're underwater.
And they also come in, you know, birds or whatever. I have some of those seeds at my house because I didn't know what they were when we were first finding them. It's like, wow, this is kind of neat. And,
Yeah.
so, but it's a maintenance item and it's an expense and
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I would think at least the first time we'd want to remove everything, 'cause it's a lot of material to be going to the bottom of the lake.
Yeah, no, I agree with that as the removal, but then as far as maintaining it, I'm wondering if
yeah.
there's just other options.
Yeah, I think going forward, you may not have to go through the whole removal process every year. You might be able to do the chemical treatment to see how, or to even see what exactly happens, because
Yeah.
it's already spread to some of the some smaller pods, which they were able to pull out by hand. So, but they're really difficult to get rid of because the seed pods last several years on the waterbed before they'll sprout again.
we even get, forgive me, is it the trout club? There's a couple and there's another pond, but we used to get the reports, but they'd even go and check those places and like, no, it's okay, they don't need treatment at this time. They go back and check, yeah, we need this spot, touch some areas or whatever, so. Just, again, you know, is the town going to do that? You have which water bodies, you know? How come his pond and not my pond? And same thing, I mean, ideally, that's something that should just be part of, like, repainting crosswalks, you know? I mean, it would, otherwise, you know, it ends up back again. So just food for thought for people.
Well, then you get into the debate of whether the investment in the equipment is worthwhile. There's quite a few bodies of water in Norfolk,
Right.
so, but we can't spend the money.
Yeah, we could also do it for other towns too, if we ended up purchasing the equipment ourselves.
Don't look at me. Right away, I think liability, just, you know. I'll drive that thing.
There you go.
Hire it out. It's always better.
Yeah, you'll be a professional millweed harvester.
Okay.
Okay.
We have one action order extension for 14 Brookside.
Yeah, I put it with your papers, actually.
Then we have to approve the minutes.
Okay, so we have a certificate of release for an expired order of conditions. The order of conditions issued by the Town of Norfolk Conservation Commission for the project referenced by DEP and NCC file number 240-31 encumbering off Seekonk Street, also known as Brookside Acres, and recorded in the Norfolk Registry of Deeds in book number 649, pages 439-441, has expired. This order of condition no longer encumbers this property. So notwithstanding the foregoing, nothing contained herein shall affect the applicability, if any, of the provisions of the State Wetland Act, 310 CMR 10.00, as amended, and the Town of Norfolk Wetland Protection Bylaw and regulations thereunder. Executed on 12th of September, just yesterday?
Oh, today,
That's today, okay.
it's the 12th, yeah.
All right, so we need to vote on this?
Yes.
Okay, so I need a motion to approve this certificate of release for Brookside Acres from somebody.
I'll second it.
And you need to
I
make a
mean,
motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Motion to release
I'll make a motion to release
the expired order
expired
conditions
order conditions for Brookside Acres.
Okay, a second?
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so we'll sign this.
That was the one we reviewed last meeting, right?
Okay, so we have minutes. Okay, so now we just have the minutes.
Ally, sign it. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so we have the minutes from, that's the wrong one, the January.
Let me just make a motion to approve the minutes for August 8th.
Well, we gotta ask, everybody read the minutes?
Yes.
Everybody okay with the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from August 8th, 2018.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, minutes are approved. All right,
Thank you.
is that all? We just have information from the Ocean River Institute. Is that new information, or what you got is put on the website?
We were kicking around about pulling stuff from that to pull up on the town, the conservation website. We haven't gotten to that yet.
Okay, all right then. So our next meeting is October 10th, and the next one after that is the November 14th. And that's all for tonight. Okay, Mrs. Gleason?
We'll make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, sorry, I need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's going to be your official title, because on the minutes of last month, you're the one who made
I
the motion
did
to
too.
adjourn.
Okay, Mrs. Gleason, we're done.